Okay. Good evening, everybody. Today we will be talking and discussing about internet addiction disorder, and I'll be giving one overview and the problematic internet usage, only the signs and the symptoms. And Dr. Balhara, who is a specialist on this subject, he will be talking about diagnosis, treatment, the reason, and what can teachers and parents and caregivers do. What are their roles? We are talking about signs and symptoms for those who may be addicted to internet on any digital devices, they be their laptop or desktop or smartphone or other devices, including be it on television screen, your tab. The preliminary screening of this is, if you want to make your own assessment whether you are addicted or not, or the child is addicted or not, or anybody is addicted or not, to play video games on the internet. If you do online shopping compulsively, if you can't help, if you can't physically stop yourself from checking, even in such circumstances, this is just you're checking your updates on social media. If your excessive use of computer or smartphone is interfering with your daily life, relationships, work, and school, if you have answered any of these questions in yes, then you may be suffer from internet addiction disorder. It is also commonly referred as compulsive internet, problematic internet use. Its prevalence in American and European cultures is quite high. Many researchers have put this figure anywhere between 8.2% to 38%. And it is researched differently across ethnic cultures. In Indian culture also, we have quite high incidence of it. You can be addicted to many types of technology. Internet is just one type of technology. People get addicted to different types of technology. It's very, very difficult in these days when everybody is surrounded by technology. We are now using Internet of Things also. So in these circumstances where your fridge is also connected to internet, your AC is also connected to internet, your mobile phone, smartphone, and laptops are definitely connected to internet. Nowadays, even other appliances like used in Am I audible? Okay.
Your voice is cracking a lot.
Yeah, Ajay, your voice is cracking and at times it's echoing too.
Is it audible now?
Yeah, better right
Yes,
now.
it is audible, but sometimes cracking.
If other people can just keep their on mute when I'm speaking, it will help. In our daily life, most of the things is done by internet. If you can't find the shirt, then we do this shopping on internet. placed order of a pizza, we call online. So we are all surrounded by, if we are playing online games, maybe if we are not finding somebody, then we get to get a partner across the globe. So that is the reason, even treatment wise, it is very, very difficult to, we are surrounded by technology and internet, and we use all the time. The multidimensional risk factors of internet addiction include physical impairments, social and functional impairments, emotional impairments, impulsive internet use. There is a research which says that 38% of college students cannot go 10 minutes without checking their email, tablet, or smartphone. Dependence on the internet. Now, what causes internet addiction disorder? I am just giving an overview. Dr. Balhara will making a detailed, insightful presentation. Addiction disorder is structural changes to the prefrontal region of the brain. You can see it changes. Dr. Balhara will talk more about it. So because of this, we are unable to prioritize our life. The internet takes precedence to necessary life tasks. It affects our pleasure center of the brain. The addictive behavior triggers a release of dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical which is secreted inside our brain to promote the pleasurable experience, activating release of this chemical. Over time, we have to more and more of the activity is needed to induce the same pleasurable response, creating a dependency, and that is why this problematic internet use comes. If you find online gaming or online shopping a pleasurable activity and you suffer from an addiction to the internet, you will need to engage in more and more of the behavior to institute the same pleasurable feeling prior to your dependency. Meaning, if you get that kind of pleasure for time, it will have to increase, and slowly for the same pleasure, the duration increases. This is a theory which says the reason why you might also be addicted to internet activity because it provides multiple layers of rewards. Constant surfing of the internet leads to multiple rewards that are unpredictable, and we love unpredictable reward system. I'm just giving you some examples. What happens? Maybe when you surf the internet or Facebook or Instagram, you find your great friend has just got engaged. So it gets a release of dopamine. Next time you sign in, you learn that your another friend had just had a baby, or something like this. Each sign in gives you unpredictable results that keep you entertained and coming back for more. Now, mainly these massively multiplayer online role-playing games like PUBG, World of Warcraft, EverQuest, Fortnite, there are many games. They lead to internet addiction mainly because they never end. It goes in closed cycle, closed loop. Actually, it so happens that you are not playing the game is playing you. You become a slave of the game. The biological predispositions, like if you are suffering from different levels of dopamine, if you have deficient level of dopamine and serotonin, then the person may be more susceptible to getting this disorder. See, in this chemical deficiency, those people who have this chemical deficiency, they may require to engage in more pleasurable activity, so there is addictive internet behaviors has got a higher propensity in this population. predisposition of internet addiction are also related to anxiety and depression. If you are already suffering from anxiety and depression, then so in these times of lockdown, when we are all secluded in our homes, the population, meaning the general people and especially the children and adolescents who are now anxious about what is going to happen, they keep watching TV and listening to what is going to happen, and there is a lot of uncertainty and there is a lot of anxiety. So the risk and threat of having internet addiction disorder increases. Now, what are the symptoms? I'll just quickly go through. Emotional symptoms on the internet addiction are depression. If you are trying to understand what are these symptoms, dishonesty, feelings of guilt, anxiety, feelings of euphoria when using the internet, inability to prioritize or keep schedules, no sense of time, you are agitated, then you suffer from mood swings or boredom with routine tasks. If these kind of symptoms, these are not complete diagnosis, but then if these are symptoms, then you may be. Or you indulge in procrastination, that I'll do this task tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or later, and keep procrastinating a task, then these are signs. The physical symptoms may be backache, carpal tunnel syndrome, headache, insomnia, or poor nutrition, failing to eat less or excessively high amount of food. Poor personal hygiene, neck pain, dry eyes or other vision problems, weight gain or loss. Now, I'll just talk a little bit about what are the treatment options. Dr. Balhara will be talking in detail. The first step is recognition of the problem. The treatment or a solution can only be possible when we understand that we have a problem. If we do not understand that we have a problem and we do not accept that we have a problem, then the solution cannot be found out. I have highlighted this in red, that total abstinence from the, many people say that, okay, this screen time is a addictive thing. Digital devices are highly addictive, internet is highly addictive. Should we completely discard it? But that is not a choice left to us. We do not have that choice now. The world today is such that we have to use internet. There are many activities. Actually, this webinar is also possible because of the internet. So in these circumstances, what are the solutions? We had done a research study amongst students, 630 adolescent students in schools of Delhi NCR, and found out that 51% were normal. This is on Young's Internet Addiction Test. You can find this publication on CRI's website and also our website. I can share that also. 34% had mild addiction, 14% had moderate addiction, and 1% had severe addiction. This 1% may look very, very small, but if you look at a school which has a population of 3,000, 1% is also quite high number. In the end, I'll be handing over to Dr. Balhara with this, that whenever we talk, we say that there is no such report that so many people or such percentage of population or such percent of children or adolescent are suffering from internet addiction. So the main point here is we do not have enough evidence. But let us also understand that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Meaning, if we do not have the evidence, does not mean that the problem does not exist. The problem may still exist if we see and watch around us that people who are really suffering, are facing problems, are not able to adjust. And there are several other evidences from clinical practice, and the counselors of schools, they also tell that there is a definite problem there, but they have not been statistically calculated and presented. With this, I now hand over to Dr. Balhara. Vinay, if you can make Dr. Balhara a presenter now.
I'm doing that one. So Dr. Palhara, now you are presenter, so you can present. You can share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a moment. Okay, hello everyone. I'll just introduce myself. I am a psychiatrist. I am a faculty at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. And this is what I'm going to talk with you for over the next 30 minutes or so. So I would like to share my views on internet and us. And by default, whenever we talk of internet, the gadgets also come into play because there is no internet without the gadgets. So we'll be basically talking about internet, gadgets, and us. So that's going to be the focus of this presentation. And primarily what I'll be targeting is that rather than discussing the technicalities and the medical terms, I like to present this interface from the perspective of, say, a internet user, maybe a parent, a teacher, or maybe a person who is probably facing some difficulties. So that is what I am going to focus on in the next 30 minutes or so. Now, whenever we talk of internet or devices like mobiles, laptops, iPads, or social media applications, or even gaming, I mean, there is divergent opinions that people hold. I mean, on one extreme, many believe that this is all very good, and there should not be any restrictions on these. On the other extreme are people that yes, we can live without them. It need not be a necessity. And for this particular session, we won't go into that debate whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. We won't spend time discussing those issues. Rather, we'll just focus on, let's think of a world where probably internet exists. Let's talk of a situation, what if internet exists during our lifetime? And it's a very realistic assumption because the way things are going, it is very likely that internet is going to exist. So let's think about what if internet exists and how do we have a life where internet also has its own existence. Now, first we need to understand that why we are discussing or I mean spending so much time talking about this issue. I mean, what is the reason? What are the factors that are driving this discussion? What is at the back end which is kind of making us think that we should talk about these issues? I mean, we know that people have been talking about addiction, and people claim that there is internet addiction, there is mobile addiction, there is gaming addiction, there is social media addiction, there is selfie addiction. So it's an addiction, and we know what we do for an addiction. And the typical response, like the traditional addictions, like addiction to cigarettes or addiction to alcohol, addiction to drug, used to be this: that say no to drugs, say no to smoking, say no to alcohol, say no to drugs. But this addiction is not entirely similar to addiction to drugs. It is not the same as addiction to smoking. There is a one huge difference, and that difference is from this very simple fact that there are certain benefits that internet brings along. In today's time, there are many people who are engaging in these behavior. We know of so many people who are playing games over internet. We know of so many people who are using social media. We know of people who are watching screen for the movies or videos or whatever they like, and they're doing well. It's not that their life has come to a standstill, or they are all in a terrible shape, or they are losing it all, or they are getting problems in their relations, or they are losing their money. No, they are just managing. They are managing very well. They are leading a normal life, and that is the big difference. That is the simple reason why this cannot be an answer. For a drug, we can say that yes, say no, and that's it. But when it comes to internet, when it comes to social media, when it comes to mobile phones, we just cannot say no to it because it brings in so many positive things. So this cannot be the solution. We can't tell our kids that you will never get a mobile phone or you will never access internet. That's not going to work. We know that, and we need not do that, in fact. Because what we need to understand is that when it comes to use of internet or mobile phones or social media, we are talking about a continuum. I mean, there is one green end of this continuum, and then there is a red end of this continuum. And majority of the population that is using internet is actually not having any problems because of it. In fact, this is the kind of internet use that is called as healthy internet use. And if we think of people around us, most of them are probably into this group where they are using internet, they are using mobile phones, laptops, tablets, social media, and still they are going about their life in a normal way. They are not suffering any adverse consequences. Then there is a smaller section of population which is experiencing problems due to their internet use. And even within this population, there are very few which actually have what we call as internet addiction or the disorder. Now, we need to be very clear. When you use the term addiction, you're talking about a medical diagnosis. It's not a very generic kind of a term. It's a very specific term which has a very particular meaning. So actually, very minor fraction of population is actually having the addiction. But even a larger fraction of population has what is called as problematic internet use. So basically what it means is that these are the people who are using internet. They are not addicted to it, but somehow it is affecting their life in a negative way. So we have three kind of groups. One, larger section of population that is using internet in a healthy manner, which is called healthy internet use. A smaller fraction, a relatively very small fraction in fact, which has what is called as addiction to internet, and a slightly bigger fraction which is having probably problematic internet use. So this is how the population is in terms of their internet use. And when you bring in this perspective, you're not just talking about the addiction or the disorder, you're also talking about internet use being a lifestyle issue. It's not that only people who have this medical diagnosis, they need to think about it or they need to do something about it. No. What it means is that everyone who is accessing internet or who is using mobile phones need to give it a conscious thought, because this is a lifestyle issue. It's a lifestyle issue in the sense that anybody who moves from the green end of the spectrum to the red end of the spectrum follows the same path. You start as a healthy user, you start as a so-called normal user, and then eventually you might end up being a problematic user, or even further, you might end up having addiction to it. So this is something that we need to remember. It's an issue that everyone has to deal on a day-to-day basis. Most of us will be able to deal it effectively. Some of us will end up having problematic use. Even smaller fraction will end up having addiction. But since it's a lifestyle issue, we need to look at it from that perspective. Lifestyle means the way we live our life, the priorities that we have, the way we spend our time, the way we relate to others, our eating habits, our sleeping habits, what we like to drink, what we like to eat, where we like to go. And the same applies to internet as well, that how we want to use internet, for what reason, for what purpose, for what duration, through which device, at what time of the day. So this is how this issue needs to be addressed, rather than simply focusing on people who are now completely hooked onto internet and there is very little that they can do for themselves. We need to start talking about internet being part of our lifestyle, part of day-to-day living, and then we need to discuss that, okay, what place it should have in our lives. Now, problematic internet use is a reality. There is a lot of literature from different countries globally. We have also done this work in different population groups. We have studied this in students, school students. We have studied in engineering students. We have done a multi-country study also across 8 countries. And we have found that there is a fraction of students who has what is called as problematic internet use. So that is a reality. It exists in the population. And to add on to that, we run a clinic at AIIMS. It's called Behavioral Addictions Clinic. And we get people there, we get patients who present to us with different kind of complaints. Issues such as difficulty focusing on studies, difficulties going to school, scoring poor marks in exams, failing exams, not being able to take care of their personal hygiene, their health, not able to sleep on time, not able to eat properly. There is a lot of anger issues. There is discord among family members. There are kids who don't want to get out of their rooms, not willing to meet the doctor. I mean, this is the common presentation that we get, and the extreme can be really. I mean, we get kids who
Uncle,
only
Papa Sonu.
We get kids who are thrown out of the college because they are not attending their classes. We get students who have lost 10, 20, 30 kgs of body weight because they have been taking personal care. That can be the extreme. But again, I would say that what we get in the clinic is a smaller fraction. And WHO has recently recognized gaming disorder as a diagnosable medical condition. So it's not just a bad habit that we're talking about. For some people, it actually ends up being a medical disorder. And what that means is that these kids are diagnosed with this condition, they are in need of medical help, and they require therapy for that. And it's just not that the behavior is going haywire. I mean, there is a decent amount of literature which has shown that people who have these addictions, there are changes in their brain, and these changes in the brain can persist, and these changes can be either a reflection of their addiction, or it can lead to different problems in their lives. So what we're talking about is mental condition that's been recognized by WHO as a medical disorder, and we are getting these patients in our clinic, and our research shows it exists in the community as well. So it is a reality that we talk about. So what can we do? Besides me
The
talking
voice
as
is
a
breaking.
psychiatrist and
Voice
talking
is
about
breaking.
people and
Hello?
talking about people who are kind of
Your voice is breaking.
the reason is probably there is some disturbance going on. Somebody is not me, and there is a kid that is speaking, I guess. If I can request them to
Stop.
turn off their
Poonam ma'am's
microphone.
mic is on. Poonam ma'am's mic is on.
And can somebody please turn that microphone off? Okay, I think now it's better. So besides me being talking as a mental health expert and a mental health professional who would say that, okay, if you have addiction, come to us and let's treat it, I would rather target the parents, the teachers, the people who are using internet, and would recommend that there is a lot that you can do at your own level. And I'll avoid using again the technicalities of it and just try to convey a few simple messages. So first and foremost, let's think of it as a lifestyle issue. Let's not talk about the addiction part of it. Addiction is something that sets in very late. It takes time. We see it developing over the years. And if we can intervene early, we can prevent it. So let's look at internet and gadgets as a part of our life, and let's kind of do something so that it doesn't end up being a problem. So what we can do? The first thing that we need to understand is that here we are talking about three things. First is the agent. Agent is the internet, the mobile phones, the games, the social media. I mean, this is what we are accessing. Then there is somebody called as host. Host are the people, the children, the students, we, who are actually using these devices, who are using this internet. And finally, the environment, which could be the family, the school, and the college, the media, our friends. So basically, it's an interaction of these three factors which eventually decide how it turns out for us, how it turns out for a particular individual. And the day a person gets a mobile phone to the day that person becomes addicted to games or mobile or internet, there is a host of factors, there is a multitude of factors which are within the person and in the environment that play their part. Simply buying a mobile phone or simply having an internet package does not mean that we will develop addiction. No, there is a lot, there are lots of factors that need to play their part, and when these factors or they are playing their part, then eventually we end up having the addiction or the problematic internet use. And interestingly, many of these factors are modifiable. I mean, there are many which are not modifiable. There are certain risk factors with which we are kind of born, and we can't do much about that. But yes, majority of these factors can be modified. But what we need to remember is that these modifiable risk factors, the way they can be modified, they can vary. I mean, there are many factors which the user can modify. Then there are certain factors which the family can modify. Some of these are modifiable by the friends or the teachers, and some of these factors require much broader policy related decisions. So we need to be clear that there are certain things that might be beyond us, things like regulating internet, what is accessible, what kind of applications are allowed on mobile phones. Those are more of policy kind of issues, and probably this is not the right forum to talk about that. We should be talking more about what we can do as a user or as a parent or as a family member or as a friend or as a teacher. Now, first, we need to be aware. What we need to be aware is that this is the reality of today's world. And there are people who are facing problems because of their internet use, some of them to the extent of getting addicted. So let's be aware. We cannot just deny that since I'm fine today, I need not care about it. There are many issues in our life which might not be evident as of today, but if we don't take care of those issues, they might end up being a problem for us later on. And that later on might not be very far off. It might be in the immediate future also. So let's be aware. That's the first thing. And what that means is if we are aware, we will do something about it. And what can be these some things that we can do? Second is we need to remember that it's very hard to predict. I'm talking about that majority don't have the addiction, a smaller fraction has addiction. But if you look at these people who are healthy internet user and you compare them with problematic internet user, you can go back in time and you can say, yes, there was a time when nobody had a problem. So both the healthy users as well as the people who have problematic internet use, there was a stage in their life when they did not have the issue. But that is in retrospect. It's not true the other way around. You cannot look at an internet user today and predict whether this particular person will end up having a problem later on, because the science has not reached that level where it can tell that if you are using internet in this way today, you will eventually end up having addiction. No, it doesn't work that way. So we need to be prepared for the fact that it's very difficult to predict. And what that means is that since we don't know what's going to happen with our internet use later on in our lives, we need to prepare for the worst. We need to be proactive so that we don't eventually end up having the problem. And that means that we need to take these actions collectively. Maybe it makes sense for all of us. Prevention is better. I mean, there is probably, it's a very apt medical condition where this saying is absolutely correct. There is treatment that exists for these addictions, but the treatment is very difficult. And not just the treatment part of it is complicated, even getting the kid to the doctor is a challenge. Most of the people who come to our clinic are the parents, and the first concern that they have is that we are not able to bring our kid to you. Please tell us what we can do. He or she is simply refusing. So management is a challenge. It exists, but it's challenging. Prevention is easier and better. So this is the third message that I like to give to you. Fourth, we need to start talking about age appropriate use of internet. Now, what's happening is that most of our kids, they are learning about internet use on their own. There is no supervision. Nobody teaches them. It's like they someday end up having a mobile phone or a laptop which has internet access on it, and they just learn on their own. It's like hit and trial. Somebody tells them, which could be a friend, why don't you do this, why don't you access this? They just get these messages from the media, but there is no structured information that is being given to them. And you might be surprised, there are certain guidelines. For example, if you look at WHO's guideline, it clearly says that those who are less than 1 year old, they should not look at screen even for a minute. I mean, that's interesting, you know, because if we think of some people, we know somebody who kind of makes the infant watch a YouTube rhyme while he or she is being fed. But there are clear guidelines that those who are less than 1 year old, they should not be watching screen. It doesn't give them any benefits. For kids who are between 1 or 2 years of age, it should not be more than 1 hour. And still WHO says that less is better. It doesn't mean that they must look at a screen for 1 hour. No, up to a maximum of 1 hour, but not more than that, and lesser is better. Similarly, there is a guideline for kids who are 3 to 4 years of age, and it's very clearly documented, and this is grounded in some kind of evidence that shows that if you go beyond this much time, you are bound to have negative effects. But then there is a limitation. WHO doesn't recommend anything more than 4 years of age, because then it becomes rather complex, because these days internet is being used for studies, academics, and that's why there are no clear-cut recommendation that what is the appropriate time for those who are more than 4 years of age. So what can we do in that scenario? I'll just talk about that in a moment. The fifth point is that we should talk about appropriate reasons for use of internet. It's not that internet or mobile phones are bad. What we need to focus on is that there has to be the right reason for their use. We might end up spending 1 hour looking at our screen just for this session. Many of us will find it useful. So is it inappropriate? I would say it's appropriate because it's probably what we are looking forward to, and it might help us in the long run. But we need to identify that it's just not the time that is important. Many people tend to believe that if you are not overdoing it, then it's likely to be okay. It's true that majority of addicted people, they are spending a lot of their time over internet, but what is equally important is the reason for which you are using internet. And besides the time for which you use internet, you should look at the reasons. If you're using internet for pleasure or comfort or as a substitute for something else, it is likely that you will pick up a liking for internet, and it might eventually end up being overused by you. So remember, internet use has to be for the right reasons. Right reasons include educational purposes. Right reasons include learning something new. Right reason includes office related work. Right reasons includes checking an email. Right reason includes playing the game, but for a specified duration. Right reasons include connecting to people over social media, but for a specific period of time at a particular time of the day. So we need to be clear that we have the right or appropriate reasons for using internet. Next, it has to be that there is an appropriate time for its use. That lifestyle perspective that I'm talking about, if you look at it from that perspective, it becomes very easy on us, no? We want our kids to sleep on time. We want them to wake up on time. We want them to have lunch at a particular time. We want them to study at a particular time. Then why can't be there a time slot where they use internet? And there won't be any internet access beyond those hours. Why can't there be a slot where they play those games and there won't be any time before or after where they don't do it? Let's have this kind of a timetable where internet also fits in and it doesn't spill over to the other slots. There will be a slot for internet, a slot for sleep, a slot for talking to others, a slot for going out and playing in the field or playground. So let's have that kind of a timetable where everything has its own place and they need not infringe on others' allotted time. Second, and the seventh point I'd like to mention is that we need to think from their perspective. Many times what happens is when the parents come to us, they see the behavior as a problem and the kids, they don't see it as a problem. And that is strange, you know. They are all talking about the same situation. The parents say that it's a huge issue for us. The kid simply says, no, it's okay. I mean, it's something that everybody else is doing. What we need to remember is that children think from a different perspective. They're living in different times. I mean, the way they relate to their friends, the way they relate to each other over social media, the way they think that internet has an importance in their lives may be different from the way the parents think about these things. Remember that when you were growing up, you did not have access to these things to the way your kids have it. And you need to bring in their perspective as well. You need to think about these terms, FOMO. I mean, FOMO, fear of missing out, it is a reality. When you talk to any child, any adolescent, I mean, it's a valid concern that they have. So when we talk with our children or our students, we need to validate their concerns. We need to validate their feelings. We cannot simply reject them by simply saying that we also grew up. I mean, we were also kids once upon a time and we never did this. Why do you have to do this? No, times have changed, priorities have changed, the way people relate to others have changed, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to validate that. We cannot take a confrontational stance all the time and tell our kids, no, we had a lifetime, we had a childhood, and that was all okay. So even you can survive without these things. We need not take those confrontational stances because it doesn't help at all. It just leads to barriers and blocks. The eighth point is that as a parent or as a teacher, we should remember that internet and gadgets, they should not be made rewards. They should not be things that children look up to. It should not be that, okay, if you study for 1 hour, you can play for next 10 minutes. What you are actually doing is you're trying to tell your kid that gaming is a desirable thing and you should work towards getting it. If you score first in your class, you will get a new phone. No, that's not the right kind of reward. You cannot make internet, games, gadgets something that the kids desire. What I'm saying is that there is an appropriate time and a place for the kids to have and use these things, but they should not look up to these things as something that they should achieve. No, just make it part of their routine life. Don't make it as a special thing, because eventually what happens is the kids get this message that whenever we do something good, we would be rewarded with a particular behavior. For example, access to internet or access to mobile or access to games. And that kind of reinforces their belief that this is something that is good. That's why my parents want me to do well in life or do well in studies, and then I can get these rewards. No, that should not be the way. Just keep them as something very neutral, which they can access for the right reasons, for the right time, but not as a reward. The ninth point is that everything has its own place in our lives, and even internet and gadgets need not be an exception. So we have a place for playing out in the playgrounds. No parent would want their kid to play all the time in the ground. No, they will want their kids to play for an appropriate duration. No parent would want their kids to study all the time. No, because they know that it's not the only thing that the kids have to do. So we need to tell ourselves that we have identified that this is what is important for our kids, and we want our kids to do this particular thing, and let internet be one of those things, and let it have its own place, its own space, and it being a part of their life, not the only thing towards which the kids are always working. I mean, something that they are always thinking about, something that's the only positive thing in their life. No, we need not do that. Let's treat these things as usual day-to-day things, and let these things have their own place in our day-to-day life. People who have internet addiction, their internet use, it kind of impinges on multiple aspects of one's life. While people who don't have internet addiction and still they're using internet, they still have internet in their lives, but it does not color the rest of their life. It has its own place. So we need not take this violet spot out of the green life. No, it can have its own spot. What we need to ensure is that it does not go and overtake the overall life of the kid. Our target should be the circle on the extreme left, not the one on the right. And one most important thing is that we need to walk the talk. As parents, as teachers, it's not uncommon for the kids who end up in our clinic and telling us that why don't you ask my mom not to send the good morning messages through WhatsApp in the morning? Why don't you ask my dad not to check the email while we are having our dinner? If we want our kid to have this positive lifestyle where internet and gadgets, they don't create a problem, we need to set the right kind of role models to them. We need to mean what we say, and we need to tell our kids that it reflects in our own behavior. So whenever we are eating, we should not be using internet, even for work, even for emails, even for checking on news. We need to tell ourselves that we'll have specific time for that, and we won't let internet or gadgets interfere in rest of our lives. And finally, we need to be vigilant. In spite of we taking care, we taking all the precautions, some of us will eventually end up having the problematic internet use and addiction, and we need to be prepared for those situations. There are services that are available. There are mental health professionals who provide these services. And if you think you know somebody who has a problematic internet use or internet addiction, you should not delay help seeking. There are clinics that are being run in different parts of the country. Ours is one such clinic. You search for these avenues of help, and help is available. So to conclude, I'll just say this thing, that let's be prepared for a world where internet exists. Even if we don't like it or want it, that's probably the way the things are going to be for at least next few years. And let's remember this, that it's a spectrum, and let's try to be on the green side of it, and let's ensure that our kids have a safe and healthy use of internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ballara. Now we have some time left for discussion or any question that anybody wants to ask. You can put your question in chat, or you can on your own unmute your microphone and ask.
So, hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I just want to ask, as you were saying that we do not have to give the initiative to the children that if you will do something good, or if you will do 1 hour studies, we will give you the mobile. But if we used to take the mobile from them and we do not give them for gaming also,
Mhm.
they used to behave in a very inappropriate way.
Yeah.
Means they used to hide the things with us, they do not share his things with us. Then what is the solution for that?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. See, when I say that don't give them mobile phone, I don't mean that don't give them mobile phone at all. What I have told you is that don't use mobile phone as a reward. So the message should not be that if you study, then you will get mobile. No, the message should be something like this, that you have a timetable. In this timetable, there is a time when you are supposed to study, and then there is a time when you are supposed to use your mobile phone for gaming or social media or chatting or whatever. So when you are supposed to study, you should be studying and not thinking about mobile phone, because when the time comes for mobile phone, I'll give you the phone. So what I'm trying to tell you is that rather than projecting mobile as a reward, tell them that yes, the way you eat, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you have your meals, you sleep, you study, you will use mobile as well. So it's part of your routine life. Don't make them think as if of something that they have to achieve it. That's what I'm trying to tell you, that don't make it a reward. Have a slot in their day-to-day routine where they can use it. That's what I'm trying to convey. I'm not telling you that don't give them the phone at all. No, that's not the message. That's not how it's going to work. What we need to do is that we need to tell our kids that this is the time when you will be having access to mobile for this much duration for this reason, and that's it. We won't have it before or after it. So when the time comes, we will get the mobile phone. That's what I mean by that.
Thank you so
Related to the same question, so we should not be using it as a punishment as well. Like if we feel that
Yes.
they haven't done something right, so we take the phone away.
That's exactly what I mean. What I'm trying to emphasize is that let's not make mobile a special thing in their lives. See, let's make it as a routine, that yes, the way you do so many other things, you are using phone as well. Now we know that our kids are not able to do everything every day in the right way or to the right extent. So they might not be able to study on a particular day, but what we need to do as a parent is we need to identify what was the reason. So if they have the valid reason, then it's okay. You need not punish them for that, because then what you're doing is you're trying to tell them that mobile is a special thing. It has a special place in your life and you should work towards getting it. Let's make it a neutral thing. Let's make it a neutral thing, and then we will see over time that our kids are not constantly working towards it, because they know that they will get it eventually. So they need not focus all their attention to it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Yatan.
Yeah.
My name is Ayush. Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Ayush. I'm a clinical psychologist. I would like to ask you that would you recommend any specific age when mobile phones or smartphones should be given to a child or a student who's in school and doing schooling?
So when I use the phrase that let them use it for the appropriate reason, give me a reason and I can tell you the situation. Like for example, I can clearly tell you a 1-year-old doesn't need a mobile. That's very clear, no? A 2-year-old doesn't need a mobile. A 3-year-old also doesn't need a mobile. A 4-year-old, no, doesn't need a mobile. So a person as a student, as a child, will probably need mobile as the first thing when the parents would start thinking that there might be a situation when the child is away from us and he or she might have a reason to connect to us. So that could be the first instance in a child's life when a parent might have to think about giving them a mobile phone. But then you need to look at the purpose. Now, if the purpose is that they are able to call you, you have different kind of phones available these days. So give them a phone that enables them to call you. Don't give them a phone that enables them to play a game, because that is what that they don't need it for. So that is what I mean. There is no cutoff. What we need to identify is that what is the reason for which they need to have it, and if they have the right reason, they should have it. There is no point of denying them of a necessity.
This
Ajay
lockdown.
Mahajan has a question. Ajay Mahajan has a question. Ajay Mahajan.
Please. Okay, the question, I can read it, that what deterrents can be used for kids which can be easy substitute. So I would call
Yeah, thank you.
I'll call it what could be the, I mean, the place, the things that kids can do in place of using mobile phones. So based on our experience in the clinic, what we have realized is that many of these kids who come to us, they tell us that we have to, or we started using mobile phone because we didn't have anything else to do. I mean, we are at home on Saturdays and Sundays, and we don't know what to do because there is nobody who has planned anything for us. And in fact, based on our experience, we have realized that if you spend time with your kids, if you take them out to a playground, to a park, to a picnic, to a movie, to a mall, to a dinner, to a lunch, they like doing those things. We should remember that kids like to do different things. They like to experiment. And if you give them avenues or opportunities to explore the world around, they won't mind doing it. So you can try anything that is feasible for you. I'm not talking about going to a very posh mall or a movie theater all the time. Taking a walk with them, going to the playground, just try it out. Usually kids love them. Usually they don't say no to things. Just try out these simple things, give them options, give them alternatives, and they'll pick on something.
Hello.
Great. Is
Hello.
there are a few other questions, like the question by Ujala Arora, who is saying that guidelines are up to 4 years. Yes, that's a limitation that we have. Guidelines are till 4 years, because beyond 4 years, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes very complicated, and complicated in the sense that these days internet is being used for educational purposes. I mean, most of the schools, at least in bigger cities, they do homework using certain apps. They contact parents using certain applications. So you cannot say that beyond the 4 years, you or your kids won't have access to internet. They will have access to internet. But rather than looking for the duration, let's talk about the reasons. If we have that approach, using internet for the right purpose, then it's less likely to lead to problem. Because there is a lot of research that tells us that if you use internet for learning or for your work related issues, it won't end up being a problem for you. So let's keep that in mind.
Hello. I have a question. Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm Pradeep here. So I have a question regarding. I just want to understand in specifically in this COVID-19 situation, and when institutions, schools, they have already started the kind of an online teaching and learning system. So in this context, particularly, so how we can actually see a demarcation, a line between use and overuse of internet by children. So why I'm saying that, because because suppose there is a kind of compulsory, the child has to be there online to understand, and those learning system has to be there. But other than that, so again in this particular situation, when children are not going out, they are confined in a room. So how you're thinking that there should be a kind of or is that required, a kind of use and overuse kind of issues?
So
Yeah, thank you.
this again is a very nice question. So see, what we need to remember is that if the kids are using internet for studies, it's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. You need not be worried at all about it. But what happens at times is, especially based on the experience that we have from the clinic, parents are actually not aware I mean, it's news for them for the first time they come to know in the clinic that the kid has been using internet for gaming rather than studies. So as a parent, what the responsibility that we have is that we need to be aware that why our kid is using internet. If the kid is using it for the studies, rest assured it won't lead to a problem. If the kid is using it for learning something new, rest assured it won't lead to a problem. It will lead to a problem when you don't know what is the reason for which the kid is using, and it will become a problem when they use it as a substitute for something that they can do in the world otherwise. So those are the situations where you need to be alarmed. Use of internet, mobile phones, laptop for educational purposes is completely safe. It won't eventually end up having converting into a, so rest assured of that.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, yeah, please ask.
Yes, I'm Piyush here.
Yeah,
Yes,
please ask your
I'm,
question.
yes, yes. If you see, I mean, be it internet or the mobile, I mean, the line is very thinner. Okay, and children they can switch over. I mean, from educational to non-educational things. I mean, very swiftly. So, can we have any mechanism when uh, uh, which can, I mean, stop children from the easy transition from, say, from educational to non-educational things? Because
See,
I mean,
what
the line is very notional.
see, there is one good thing that we keep on forgetting. For a kid to access internet, the screen has to be on. So if we
Okay.
can simply keep device which the kid is using in at a place where it is visible to the parents as well, that in itself will be a very good reason for the parents to know, or a very good avenue for the parents to know what is going on. What happens is that we actually don't have any know-how of what the kid is doing. It's not wrong to have the computer that the kid is using in a common place in the house. There is nothing wrong with that. There is no guideline or there is no recommendation that says that every kid has to have a personal laptop that they can use only in their privacy. No, if you're using it for studies, it can be in a common area where anybody and everybody can see it. You should know that when the sessions are happening, when the classes are being taken, when the child is supposed to study, the parents need to be aware of the routine of their kid. And once you start involving yourself in that, you will be much more comfortable. You will be much more aware of what's going on in your kid's life. And trust me, that if you make it as a part of the routine, if the child knows that from say 5:30 to 6 o'clock, I'll be given this phone to play game, then he need not put in that effort to hide it from you or go behind your back and create excessive. I doubt they will do that. The problem arises when they think that the parents will refuse, and then they try to completely circumvent the parents. This is when the trouble starts.
Excuse me. Yeah.
It's 7 o'clock,
Hello.
so
Am I audible?
yeah,
Hello.
yeah. This could be the
Is
last
the
please.
yeah. This is that if a parent or a teacher comes to know that child is indulging into wrong internet usage, so what should be the next?
The first step will be get the child in touch with the counselor. If the counselor is in the
Yeah.
school, if there is no counselor in the school, you must contact either a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist. See, there is no point reprimanding the child or the student. What we need to understand is that there must be a valid reason for the child to do that. It's important to understand. If the problem has gone to the extent of it being internet use or an addiction, then you need professional help. And it won't go away by simple advice or punishment. You should
Yeah.
kind of send the child for the right counseling.
Dr. Krishnan Girish, maybe this can be the last question.
Okay.
Dr. Krishnan, you want to ask?
No, actually, I would just give a feedback. It was an excellent session, especially for the carers of the children, especially this age, where this internet abuse is a very potential issue. At the same time, as the presenter said, we cannot do away with it, but he has put it in a very right perspective. I really appreciate it. I was just wondering whether I should join or not, but it is good. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a small query. Do
with this,
we get the recording of the webinar?
that
Yes, you
that
can
we
just
will have
share
to
a
see
link.
how much. Yeah, we will see how big it becomes. So
Okay.
we will have. It will take a little time before we will be able to share it. It cannot be done immediately, but we will.
Thank you so much.
Not immediately, but we.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It
And
was indeed a very
maybe
nice session.
find another time. We'll find time to meet again. Take this discussion forward. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.